Folks, it's been 4 years now since the crisis in Darfur erupted, 4 years since the genocide began. And it's been 3 years and 9 months since Congress formally recognized this as genocide. The resolution in both the House and Senate passed 3 years and 9 months ago, and it passed unanimously. Not a single member denied the horror that was underway. It's been 3 years and 7 months since the administration added its own recognition. On September 9, 2004, in testimony before the committee, then Secretary of State Colin Powell said clearly that the killings in Darfur was genocide. Shortly thereafter, so did President Bush. So now, all these years later, the question still remains. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do to stop the slaughter, to return the survivors to their homes, to bring those responsible for the murder, rape, and terror to justice, and to build a lasting peace? What are we going to do about Darfur? That's the question I've asked the ambassador. He's the administration's point person for Darfur. And like his predecessor, Deputy Secretary Zellick, I have no doubt about his dedication and determination to do the right thing. In December, the ambassador told a group of senators that Khartoum had until the end of the month to agree to the deployment of UN peacekeepers. That deadline has long since passed, with no agreement by Khartoum to accept the peacekeepers and no reaction from the United States or the international community to its refusal. Today, this committee expects to hear from the ambassador a concrete plan of action. I hope they'll flesh out the administration's Plan B, as was referred to earlier, and tell us how and when the administration will act on that plan. What should we do about Darfur? Well, that's the question I've asked our outside witnesses, because there are almost certainly steps the administration is not planning to take that this committee should consider from these outside witnesses. I have my own strongly held view on what we should do. Most importantly, we need a comprehensive approach to what is a complex problem. We have to work all 6 sides of what John Prendergast, one of the leading experts in Darfur, rightly calls the policy Rubik's Cube. That will require the kind of resources, coordination, and sustained engagement at the highest levels that, in my view, we have not yet seen, or we have not only from this administration, but also we have not seen from our partners around the world. Let me quickly suggest some of the pieces of the complex approach that needs to be taken. First, pursuing Khartoum is necessary, but not sufficient. We need to work on the major rebel groups as well. 3 years ago, after visiting a refugee camp on the Chad-Darfur border, I met with the leaders of 2 of the major rebel groups. I urged them to come up with a common program. I offered to host them in Congress if they did. I warned them that if they did not, Khartoum would use their division as an excuse to do nothing. We need a major, sustained diplomatic initiative to bring these rebels together. Second, peacekeepers are essential, but they're not enough. We need a peace process. If we end the violence but fail to achieve a sustained political settlement in Darfur, the violence will return. That puts a premium on a single peace process, supported by the international community, including the African Union and the United Nations, and managed by an oversight group of concerned countries. Third, unilateral sanctions may be necessary but will not suffice. We need a coordinated action from many other countries. The United States has had significant sanctions on Khartoum since 1990. We're almost sanctioned out, to use a phrase the President used in another context. For pressure to be meaningful, it must be multilateral. The Chinese, the Arab world, the Europeans, the African Union, everyone should be joining together in this campaign. Without American leadership, I see absolutely no prospect of that happening. Fourth, limiting our focus to Darfur is too narrow. We have to include the neighbors, especially Chad and the Central African Republic. I saw firsthand the spillover effects of the Darfur crisis on Chad, and it has gotten much worse over the past 3 years. The crisis is putting an incredible strain on the neighbors, and at the same time, they have tremendous influence with some of the key players. On Darfur diplomacy and initiatives, our Darfur diplomacy and initiatives must include the neighbors. Finally, and most urgently, convincing Khartoum to accept a meaningful peacekeeping force should be our goal. But if it refuses, imposing such a force must be our mission. I wish that the African Union had the mandate, the manpower, and the material to do the job, but it does not. We must set a hard deadline now on Khartoum to accept the hybrid AU-UN force, and we must start planning to impose that force if Khartoum refuses, and to take other concrete steps that can start saving lives now. I've long advocated a NATO-led no-fly zone to stop the air support Khartoum provides to the Janjaweed. Recently, Khartoum has stepped up its slaughter from the skies. It is within our power to clip their wings. Yes, a no-fly zone could make it more difficult for humanitarian groups to operate, so we should do everything possible to design it with their concerns in mind. And I expect to ask the witnesses about that. I hope that we come out of this morning with a clear plan for action. For too long, all of us have expressed our outrage at the destruction of Darfur without doing anything meaningful to stop it. I think it's long past time we must act, even if that action is in the face of the refusal of Khartoum to accommodate anything. I realize that sounds reminiscent of what I said 12 years ago about Bosnia, but I think it is, this is incredible. Our grandkids are going to be seeing their own version of Hotel Rwanda. It's going to make it look like it was not nearly as bad as what they're going to be seeing. So I thank you very much. I also want to point out that Senator Lugar will be here, but he is testifying before the Armed Services Committee on Nunn-Lugar, and he's introducing a judge before the Judiciary Committee from Indiana, but he will be here. I thank you again, Mr. Ambassador, and I indicated to the Senator from New Hampshire if he had an opening comment on the Republican side, he's welcome to it, but suggest that